It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of a bank information. Take charge of your financial future with your personal bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show, and today, folks, we have a special guest. I'm really excited, LaCorey Meadows. She has a very inspirational story, and when I learned about her story and all that, I wanted to bring her on the show and interview her. And so, LaCorey, welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, LaCorey, just so you folks know, she's famous, I guess, for being from poverty to PhD. Quite the visionary, actually. She's a dynamic leader and wealth builder, and the CEO and co-founder of Invest to Give LLC. So, LaCorey, tell the listeners, what is Invest to Give?
Yes, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your show today.
Sure.
I am super excited to share about Invest to Give and the reasons behind it. So one of the things that encouraged me to begin my journey as an investor was my having the opportunity to engage with a woman who donated $5.3 million to the organization that I lead. And I was so inspired by that gift that I just thought, I want to be able to do that someday. But recognize that my 9 to 5 actually wouldn't help me to get there. And so I decided to begin to invest and learn everything I possibly could about the stock market, and decided to begin a business teaching other people how to do the same thing so that they too could invest to give back to the causes that they care most about.
Well, that's awesome. And from what I understand, LaCorey, you came from a background that, well, let's just say one wouldn't think you would get into stock market investing. Is that fair?
That is exactly right. Absolutely. I grew up in an environment where, it was filled with love, hugs, kisses, birthday parties, and all the things. But we just simply did not have a lot of means. Grew up in a community that was impoverished. However, that community taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about life and really helped me to have the drive that I have today. So, absolutely.
That's really awesome. Actually, that brings a question I have is, what was maybe one of the key things that you would say caused you to move from that, like you said, impoverished background growing? What was the key trigger, if you will, that kind of got you to look for something different? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So that was truly inspired by my grandmother. Yeah. She would always communicate and tell me the importance of acquiring an education. She told me that is the one thing no one can take away from you. So I'm an only child. So I'm a little, I like my things. I don't want people to take things away from me. And so as a young person, I'm like, no one can take that? Okay, well, let me figure this thing out. And so from there, I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to participate in a TRIO program, which was the Upward Bound program, and had an opportunity to spend pretty much my entire I would say from 7th grade up until my senior year of high school on a college campus during the summer. And that truly enabled me to see a different environment outside of my community, outside of my neighborhood. It also immersed me in the community in connection with people who thought differently from what I was thinking, and exposed me to so much more that was beyond just the boundaries of what I was accustomed to. And so I give all credit to the University of Cincinnati Upward Bound program as well as the Wright State University Upward Bound program, because that's what truly helped me to see the possibilities that could exist for me in my life.
I love what you shared there, LaCorey, because, with everything that's been going on in our country in the last year or two, is I think one of the biggest problems, I share this on my radio show all the time, is so many people are yelling at each other, not listening to each other. And I love what I love what you share, where you, like I said, you got outside of your neighborhood, and we're exposed to other ideas and other people, and listened and learned and gained some knowledge and benefit from that. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. And I think that there's great value in listening to people who may not agree with you, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, it's a free country.
Everything that someone who disagrees with you is not wrong. there's value in there, and there's also learning opportunities there as well. So
absolutely. So I saw here you were, a lot of people are resigning, like they're calling it the grand resignation.
Yes. Yes.
And
I'm sorry, it makes me excited.
Yes, no, that's great. So you're saying how you're sharing, I guess, the idea of how the stock market can leverage them financially to make that transition. How would how do you recommend there? How do you would recommend that to somebody?
Yes, absolutely. So, absolutely, all day. The stock market has truly changed my life in so many ways. As a stock trader, now we just will explain the difference for your listeners, just
Sure.
so they can make sure they understand. So, when we're talking about investing, we're talking about more of a long-term approach to acquiring ownership over publicly traded companies and allowing our money to grow over time. When we're trading, that's a bit different in the respect that we're still acquiring income by leveraging the stock market, but we're doing it in a shorter period of time. And so I do both, and I teach people and encourage people to do both. But trading is what has really allowed me to become a part of that great resignation movement and actually set myself and my family up, as well as the legacy that I decided to live on a whole nother level. And so by understanding how to leverage the stock market when it goes up, as well as right now we're experiencing a bit of a pullback and we're in close to correction territory,
Sure.
Especially as it relates to the NASDAQ, that is definitely something that can help ease that concern and ease that worry as people are transitioning from either one position to a next or one position to something that they truly love to do. So,
well, yes, and absolutely. With the COVID shutdowns, a lot of people, lost positions, jobs, businesses, or were forced to work from home. And there's been a lot of interest in trading. What would you recommend to somebody who had an interest? What advice would you give them?
absolutely. So the first thing I always recommend is for someone to consider their most valuable asset, and that asset is themselves. So really understanding what is your North Star, what is the goal that you're seeking to accomplish. If that goal is to be a part of the Great Resignation, then begin doing the math. What will it take for you to be able to accumulate enough income in order to not only just support yourself, but to excel? So really breaking that down for you will be a really important first step. Also spending some time just thinking about what your history is. What are some of those money memories that you have growing up? My story is one of debt, to be honest. My mother and my mom loved them both to pieces, but they would compete over who had the majority of credit cards. And so I grew up thinking I should have a whole lot of credit cards, right? That was a part of my worth, honestly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so with that, I went to college thinking that being in debt was literally the American way of life, which I soon learned when I got out of college. When I tried to get a car and recognized my interest rate was so high, I was like, you know what, maybe this wasn't the best idea, So thinking about those money memories and how those money memories impact your relationship with money today is also critically important as you're thinking about any investment strategy, whether that be in the stock market, real estate, cryptocurrency, collectibles, you name it. That's really important. So starting with self is key.
That is so powerful, LaCorey, because I actually have taught over different periods of my career financial literacy courses. And I share some of the same ideas that the experiences that we have growing up with money are so often so powerful. And I teach people how to reduce debt and offset debt and pay it down quicker and reduce the cost of debt all the time. But your point is thinking that was the American way. I didn't have that experience and I never thought of it that way. That's enlightening. So that'll help me in communicating with people better, I believe. So you keep bringing up the stock market. Why the stock market? There's lots of other investment options. Why that one?
Oh my! So okay. So one, I love the stock market. Love everything about it. And it's so funny because people are oftentimes concerned about the risks that are associated with it. There are risks, yes, but they can be managed, right? And there's also lessons that you can learn along the way. So to answer your question specifically around why the stock market, one, if we look at the trajectory of the market over the last decade plus, we've been in what we call a bull market. So even after the recession occurred, we just rebounded. We rebounded. We had a bit of a pullback. We actually entered into what is called bear territory at one point, meaning that the market fell 20% from its recent high. But then we just kept going. Even during the pandemic, the market pulled back, and then it recovered not instantaneously, but it recovered fairly quickly.
It was fast.
So, yes, very fast. So with that said, a person who has an understanding of how to leverage this powerful tool can truly set themselves up for long-term wealth, right? Now, as we think about trading, however, it doesn't matter what direction the market's moving in, because we can leverage it in both directions. So whether the market's rallying or whether it's pulling back, if you understand how to leverage price movement that way, you can still generate income from it. And so that is one of the reasons why I love it so much. Another thing is that it's a tool that it doesn't matter who you are. If you understand how to use it, you can benefit from it. So it doesn't matter what your zip code is. I grew up, as I say, in poverty, quote unquote, the hood, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter where you grew up, your zip code. Doesn't matter your skin color. Doesn't matter anything. If you understand how to leverage this, you can definitely benefit from it.
So, LaCorey, you have some resources. If somebody was interested in more information, what would you recommend? How would they contact you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on my website, invest2give.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at invest2give. I'm also on Facebook as well, and Pinterest, all under at invest2give.
Oh, okay. So, and then I saw there's a book here, Income on Demand. Your complete playbook. Tell us about that.
Yes, absolutely. So it is a #1 Amazon bestseller. I'm so proud to share that. It is a conversational guide. So I'm very passionate about helping individuals who are brand new to the market, who have no idea, who are afraid of terminology, afraid of stock charts, tickers, all that. I am so passionate about helping those individuals take their first steps on the market.
That's
and
awesome.
So I decided to write a book.
I'm going to have to cut off LaCorey because we're coming up on a hard break, but we'll have her. We're going to have her back after the break, but it's Income on Demand by LaCorey Meadows. Stay tuned with us. After the break, we'll have LaCorey join us, and I'll be asking her some more valuable insights on investing and how to become successful. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and we have a special guest today, LaCorey Meadows. She has a very inspirational story. And if you did miss the first segment, I'm going to really encourage you to go to our website, yourpersonalbank.com, and you can listen to this or any of the previously recorded shows, but you can hear LaCorey's story. It's really outstanding. She also has a best-selling book called Income on Demand, and you can contact her for more information at invest2give. That's invest, the number 2, give. And we really excited that you joined us today, LaCorey. So again, welcome back to the show.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
So you were just on the break. LaCorey was just telling me about something interesting. It's a trading challenge, I understand you do each month. Tell us a little more about that.
Yes. Okay. So every month I teach a challenge. Our first challenge is called Trade Your Payday. And so I'm speaking directly to those individuals who are interested in learning how to leverage the stock market in order to either support their income or replace their income. So this challenge is really a first step to help you understand how to take your first trade on the stock market. So we talk about understanding the language. We talk about mindset. I show you how to leverage the market when it goes up as well as when it falls. And then we also take an initial dive into something called options trading as well. So options is my favorite way to trade, so I will be definitely offering an introduction to help people get started with that too.
That's awesome, because that's something that even a lot of more seasoned investors or traders sometimes struggle with more in the options, because there's extra layers of challenge there, of understanding.
There is, yes. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, how have you seen stock trading enhance your clients' financial growth?
Oh my! So one story in particular comes to mind just immediately, for a couple of reasons. But there is a gentleman that I've worked with over time, and when he came to me, he was losing money like crazy, and he really needed to focus in on perfecting his technical analysis skills.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent some time working on that, and what he shared with me, he said, LaCorey, I came to you so that I can begin paying my way, getting out of debt. He was like, but now I'm trading my way to generational wealth.
Wow.
And when he said that just blew me away. And today, actually, I'm so happy to tell this story, he sent me a photograph of him. He wrote a book, actually. He was inspired by my ebook. So he ended up writing a book himself on options trading. And he sent a picture to me. He's on Wall Street. He's in New York right now, on Wall Street with him in his book, and also in front of the bull on Wall Street as well. And he is so excited. He ended up this morning alone standing on Wall Street, and he traded and made over $1,000. And for the market open at 9:30, I got the text at 10:14. So the market wasn't even open for an hour.
So he traded pre-market, of course. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, he traded once. It was 10:14, so the market opened at 9:30. So yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I was so proud of him just to see the growth that he's had. One of the things that I'm incredibly passionate about is just the fact that looking back to the origins of Wall Street, and I have a whole segment called Gems of Wall Street that's really garnered towards the people who helped to build it, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, enslaved Africans helped to build it, but to have him there today on Wall Street trading and making money, that just meant the world to me. So, yeah. That's been life-changing. That's
truly awesome. Yeah. And then I also understand you have an apparel brand with Invest to Give also. Is that correct?
I do. Yes, I do. It's called Chosen for More, the Chosen for More Collective. And the whole goal behind this brand is to inspire conversations about investing among families and communities. I did not grow up, as I mentioned before, having conversations about stocks around my dinner table, real estate, or any of that around my dinner table. So my goal is to have apparel with intentional words on it that hopefully would serve as conversation starters. And so I would love for kids to, look at their Uncle T or aunt and say, what is a generational wealth builder? What does that mean? What does it mean to be a stock trader? So my goal is to encourage those conversations to happen to hopefully then influence individuals to begin their own investing journey.
So basically, so if they want more information on that, go to Invest to Give.
Yes, there is a link there.
Okay.
Or they can go directly to the website. It's chosenformoreco.com.
That's awesome. Look, Corey, I've really enjoyed talking with you today because, again, it kind of fits into one of the key themes I've shared for years as an entrepreneur myself, a financial person with many clients. I've often said, financial literacy is key, and there's so little of it these days. And having a better understanding of your money is so powerful. And there is a lot of interest in trading, particularly in the last couple of years. And even if somebody who maybe has never traded before, but has had an interest, I get asked this probably weekly from clients. If you don't want to, I say, look, if you don't want to trade your entire portfolio or anything, that's fine. But taking a small piece even and learn just the learning experience and understanding how it works and the money is so powerful, because I think I've said this who's going to watch your money better than yourself, right?
I completely agree.
Exactly. So, and I think you have, it seems to me, for everything I've learned and shared about you today, I really appreciate you joining us today on the Your Personal Bank Show, is like you said, you really are targeting that person who's probably never traded before but has an interest, right?
Yes. absolutely. Absolutely. I'm here for it.
There you go.
Anything I can do to help someone get started on their journey, I am here for it. Even for those who are more advanced, definitely understand the more advanced strategies and so forth. So, absolutely.
So again, one more time, I'm going to ask you, LaCorey, if somebody has an interest in getting more information or reaching out to you or putting their toe in the water and trying this out, how would they what should they do first, and how would they contact you?
Yes, absolutely. So the quickest way to get into contact with me is you can email me at hello@invest2give.com. You can also find me on Instagram, and that's at invest2give. And you can find me on Pinterest and Facebook as well.
Awesome. And so anyway, so this is I can't say how much. You have no idea how excited I am about seeing people like yourself out there educating, because that's where my heart is educating, particularly in financial literacy issues. So, LaCorey, I can't stress that enough. I guess the last thing I want to leave folks with, and LaCorey, I have one last question for you. I kind of want, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe come from a similar background as yourself, or came from a background maybe he's not financially successful or very literate? What would you recommend to that person? What should they do?
Say yes to yourself. Right? Say yes to yourself, and also believe in yourself as well. One of the things that I'm extremely proud of is that although I have 3 degrees on my wall, right, none of them suggest that I should be making as much money that I do in the stock market.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that, LaCorey. Say yes to yourself. That's very empowering and very uplifting. Love it. Thank you for joining the show, Your Personal Bank Show. And again, it's LaCorey Meadows, Invest to Give. Stay tuned in the next segment. I'm going to cover some other really awesome stuff that we've been talking about recently, so stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and boy, I'll tell you what, that was a really awesome guest, folks. LaCorey, she's quite an inspiration, coming from, like she said, she from the hood. She came from a tough background, and to see that type of thing where somebody sees an opportunity, takes advantage of it, does something better, like I said, building generational wealth for herself and her family, and then also giving back by teaching and helping others. I'll tell you what, that's pretty inspiring. So like I said, I'm going to encourage you, if you missed it, go to yourpersonalbank.com. You can listen to that or any of the other previously recorded shows. Contact LaCorey if you do have an interest in maybe learning how to trade a little bit, or just, the thing is, whether you actively trade a lot or not, or just even a small portion, like she said, you're going to learn a lot about money. You're going to gain a lot of financial literacy. And I think for somebody who, whether they're going to trade, I'm not saying you have to sit and day trade me in front of a computer all day, but even, there's other options like swing trading, where folks can, pick stocks or the positions or whatever that they like, and, hold them for several, days or weeks or months even, because it's something like, or longer term, several years. But whatever you do with that, you're going to learn a lot. And again, don't. I wouldn't recommend take everything initially. Learn, take a small piece and learn, because I think I shared this with LaCorey too, as we were talking, is really, who is going to watch your money closer than yourself? I mean, nothing against any financial advisor or anything like that. There's a lot of really good ones out there, don't get me wrong. But the fact of the matter is, it's your money, right? And that's why what I love about the personal bank concept is it's about empowering people to take control of their money, because what your personal bank concept does is it allows you to have your money grow safely, tax-free, and gives you access to it, and then you be able to use it and gain positive arbitrage so that you get 2-3% return on your money, irregardless what you do with it, whether you spend it, use it to buy something, or invest or trade or do something else. You increase your rate of return, you increase your likelihood of success, okay? But it's about empowerment, and it's about taking control and gaining knowledge and experience and financial literacy, really, right? A perfect example I'll share with you is a new client I was talking to just a week or two ago, and it was kind of funny. He was saying, he had this portfolio, and he had to divide it. It was interesting. He divided it in half in his case. And he'd been a rather experienced trader, investor. I guess you'd probably say he's an investor over a long period of time. And he, as he put it, he allowed the professionals manage half of it, and he managed the other half. And he says, Ference, I got to tell you, these last 2 or 3 years, I've done better. And I said, the financial industry probably doesn't want to hear that, but the reality is that's a very common theme that I hear. Again, and the reason behind it comes down to one simple thing. Who's going to watch your money closer than you? And I know a lot of the listeners and things like that, the radio listeners in particular, are do-it-yourselfers, right? I mean, you're doing a lot of those kind of things, and that's great. Okay, I think educating yourself. Look, you don't need to be an expert. Okay, you don't need to know everything, but having a better understanding of money, a better understanding of some financial literacy is powerful. It's a powerful key in being successful in this world because, those of you that have been listening for a while know every beginning of the year I like to do the Wheel of Life. I talk about that frequently where there's different areas of our lives, whether it's health or relationships, financial, spiritual, all those different areas of our life. And the key is to being successful in life and being happy and being fulfilled is you got to have some success in all of those areas. In other words, you could have all the money in the world and have terrible health, and you're probably not very happy. I mean, somebody who is struggling with their health for whatever reason, has a bunch of money, probably almost universal, a trade most, if not all that money just for good health, right? I mean, that's a pretty obvious example, okay? You can say the same thing with relationships or spiritual or any of those other areas of our lives. So money isn't the most important thing, but it is an important part of our lives because our society, we need money to trade for goods and services and the things that we want and need. Like I've shared this story so often. My wife was sharing with me one day, a few years ago, we're driving along, and she said something very insightful, which she often does, and it was, there's been times in our lives we've had a lot of money, and there's times where we haven't. And she goes, money doesn't make you happy, but man, it sure eliminates a lot of stress. And she's right. It takes some things off the table, and stress is one of those things that we all live with. And if anytime you have the opportunity, you can reduce your stress in your life, you're probably going to be happier. So that's very, very important. Stay tuned in the last segment. I'm going to share a few other ideas and some things that I think are very big picture things that I think are important. So I don't.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show, and I just want to kind of finish up on some thoughts today that I think are very valid and important. Based on the interview earlier in the show with LaCorey. If you did miss LaCorey Meadows' interview, I really encourage you to go to yourpersonalbank.com. You can listen to this or any of the previously recorded shows at any time. Each of them have a topic, so they all have different topics. You can pick and choose things that have interest to you. There's something like over 2 years of shows there, so there's a lot of content, tons of content in terms of how does your personal bank work, for example. How do you maximize returns, increase your probability of success, reduce taxes, increase liquidity, and I think positive arbitrage, positive cash flow. But maybe the most important key to your personal bank that I think many people don't realize until they get involved with it and start really working with it is taking control back of your money. I know the entire the financial industry has been built on having advisors, handle our money for us, right? And I'm in the financial industry myself. But again, what I do is so unique, or rather unique, I should say. I like to empower people to take control of their money and grow their money. And LaCorey's doing the same thing, teaching people how to trade in the stock market if that's of interest to them, for example. There's many other ways to build wealth, of course, but the key is you have to have use and access of funds. And if, you don't have the financial literacy, the knowledge, the experience, it's one of those things it's a good idea to get it, right? And if you have an interest in it, of course, that's even more powerful. But even if you're not overly interested in it, at least having a basic understanding, so you can run things in an emergency is key because, if nothing else, you won't get taken advantage of, by unscrupulous characters, right? And again, that's why I love to educate people. And I was talking to a new client today, and he even said he apologized to me for asking so many questions, but they were genuine questions that he was just wanting to understand better. And in fact, he happens to be a commercial pilot. So it just hit me. I don't think of these things beforehand. Just every once in a while I get a brief stroke of genius, I guess. But I said to him, I laughed and I said, no, I appreciate the fact that you're asking the questions with a desire to want to understand better. I want you to understand what you're doing better. And I want you to have a good understanding of your money and how it works and why you're doing what you're doing. Because, for one thing, I'm not here to sell you on a product or a service or whatever. I want you to buy into it. I want you to buy into your financial future and understand why you're doing what you're doing to increase your returns and reduce your taxes and increase your liquidity and all those kinds of things, right? And get the positive arbitrage, the positive cash flow, and take control and do some things with your money that you want to do, that you feel like is a good idea. And I want you to have that understanding. I want you to have that basic knowledge, and because you're going to get challenged and questioned by people of why you're doing what you're doing. It's going to happen. It's just a natural process and course of life. And I don't want you doing something because I told you should do it or I sold you on something, because then you're not going to be as settled in on what you're doing and understanding, and you can be wavered or talked out of it because it really wasn't your idea. It was my idea. I want this to be your idea. I'll educate you, help you understand it, show you how. No, I'm more about your educator, your guide. And then you recognize the benefits and the strengths and the power and the unique ability to create positive arbitrage, for example, with your personal bank. And when you do get challenged or questioned by somebody, whether that be an advisor or a family member or a friend or a CPA or anybody else for that matter, you're going to explain or stand firm on knowing why you did what you did. And then I said to him, in other words, like I said, this was that brief stroke of genius. I said, in other words, I don't expect you to be an expert pilot, a professional pilot. I just want you to be able to land the plane in an emergency if you need to. And he kind of laughed. He got it. It clicked. He understood, right? You need to be able to fly your own plane, land your own plane in an emergency if you need to. You see what I'm trying to say in regards to your finances? You don't have to be a financial expert. You don't have to spend every day, researching financial topics and things like that. I mean, I do that because, it's what I do. It's my career. It's my passion. I have an interest in it, and I help and assist other people in advice and stuff. But having a basic understanding is really helpful. And the problem is, when it comes to that basic understanding, that financial literacy piece, I guess, is I find so often most of us, statistically, this is true, most of us were never taught or given any real financial literacy education at any point in our lives. I mean, most of us weren't taught this in growing up and in the home. Some of us had the fortune of, growing up with very wealthy, successful parents, but that's not the norm, is it? In other words, it's not our parents' fault. I'm not blaming them. I had the same experience. For the most part, most parents want for their kids the best, right? And if they can give them better than what they had, that's the desire of most parents. And when it comes to financial, think about it. If the parents understood how to be successful financially, do you think in most cases, do you think they would hide it or not share that with their kids? No, of course they would. The reason why most parents don't share financial literacy and success principles and things like that with their kids is because they don't know how to do it themselves. Okay? They weren't taught it themselves. They don't understand these things themselves. I certainly wasn't taught. So the thing is, how can they teach it if they don't know it themselves? You see what I'm trying to say? And that's the thing that, oftentimes passes on multi-generationally. So that's why with LaCorey, I just applaud her for breaking that cycle, right? It's just like breaking the cycle of a dependency cycle, let's say, in a family where there's a dependency on drugs or alcohol or something like that, and the kid or whatever decides to, and it's a generational thing, and they decide, you know what, I'm gonna break that generational cycle. Look, or abuse or any other thing matter. These things are real. You know what I'm talking about, where these are generational things that happen in families. And it takes a lot for somebody to step up and say, no, that stuff is not going to continue on past my generation. I'm going to be the one that's going to change direction. Okay. And it takes some gumption to do that. No question about it. But if you are that person, and again, I'm going to share a quick story. A lot of people, think, well, I know enough about money. I'm going to give you a quick story and give you an example. So when I was some years ago, when I was doing more in the financial literacy education stuff, I remember being in a workshop and in the room, okay, there were over 20 PhDs. And the presentation, what we were doing is we had a college certified financial literacy course that was being taught in several colleges, and the proposal was to expand that into other colleges. So there were representatives in the room of something like about 10 different colleges around the Phoenix area, approximately a little over 20 people in the room. Every single one was a PhD. Every single one of them was economics focused. Several had written books. I mean, looking at this, you would think that these were some of the top of their field, if you will, in financial literacy and economics and all this kind of stuff, right? So we started sharing some of the curriculum that's taught, just to give them an idea of what would be taught in terms of understanding things like the 80-10-10 rule and basic financial literacy things and things like positive arbitrage, okay? Taking control of your money, not just relying on others exclusively. Certainly you can hire experts to give you advice and help you and assist you, but having a general basic understanding and knowing, what's the best thing to do for you in your situation. And one of the PhDs, in fact, one of the top ones there, and he'd written a book on all that, he said, I want to make a comment. And he said, this information is gold. This was his comment. These are the kinds of things I share with people on a regular basis. And he said, this information is gold. And he says, you keep talking about, sharing this information and educating the students, the college students. He goes, folks, I've never heard any of this in my life. Not only do the students need it, we need this information. We weren't given this financial literacy information either. And every one of those PhDs in the room nodded their head and affirmed an agreement. They were all in agreement that this was information, financial, positive arbitrage, the stuff that I share every day, every week on the radio shows. This was the stuff that they said, look, we as PhDs, economics professors and all that kind of stuff, money educators, need. So there's an ego issue there. I mean, we don't sometimes, especially with guys, okay, I can speak to that as being one. We have an ego. We're supposed to know this stuff. We're supposed to be the breadwinner. We're supposed to be all, smart about money and all that. And to admit that maybe we don't know all this stuff and maybe we do need some assistance and maybe some of the things that we thought were true aren't true and we could do so much better, sometimes it's hard to admit. And that's a fact. I'll give you another quick story. I was doing a workshop And I was sharing something of the results of the Dalbar study. It's DALBAR. You can look it up. It's Dalbar study. You can look it up online. They do it every year, and it's a statistical research study where they basically look at what is the actual returns people have in their average IRA and 401k in the United States, net of fees. So after fees. So what are the folks actually earning each year? And depending on which year you're looking at, the average annual return for the Dalbar study, and they've been doing this for over 30 years, folks, is between 2 and 3%. Some subcategories sometimes get in the 4 or 5%. But generally speaking, 2 to 3% is the typical return over the past 30 years, the average IRA or 401k net of fees in the United States. And certainly the stock market has had one of the most tremendous decades in history. Okay, so this is a statistical fact. Well, one of the guys in the room, I didn't know this at the time, there was over 100 people, investors in the room, got up and walked. He left. Now, I thought he was going to the bathroom or something. I didn't know. Anyway, he calls me. This was a Saturday workshop. He calls me on Monday, and he says, Ference, I have to apologize. So what do you mean? He said, you shared that Dalbar study, and the statistical average of 2 to 3% is a typical IRA 401k return. And I got up and walked out because I didn't believe you. I said, but I did some research. And he goes, you don't know who I am, but he goes, I'm the CFO of one of the largest IRA and 401k fiduciary companies in the country. In other words, they're not the ones that sell the IRAs and 401ks. They're the ones that actually manage the funds, okay, that the advisors go to. And he goes, we have numerous Fortune 500 companies. We have millions of 401k IRA accounts. He's the CFO. He goes, I went and did the research and pulled up the average annual return of our clients' IRAs and 401ks for the last 15 years. He goes, Ference, do you know what the average statistical average return was? I said, no. And he says, I would have swore up and down. I left because I've been told, and I would have swore it was 7%. Because that's all I've ever heard. He goes, Ference, the actual statistical average is 2.3% over the past 15 years for our clients. Today, he's a client of mine, or he has been for years now. Folks, when people actually look at the facts, they get he got a rude awakening, but he took advantage of it. And what's interesting is he's the CFO of a 401k fiduciary company, yet his personal monies are in your personal bank because he's getting 575 consistent dividend, tax-free, with positive arbitrage. He can access the money when he needs it. As he puts it, I make more money, and it's safer, and I pay less taxes. So, you want more information, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com. I'll be happy to educate you and help you understand how this can enhance your financial future.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.